welcome back. Tonight is Wednesday, so that means it's Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And every single week, it's a different topic. My name is Harrison Sanchez. I am the founder and host of Woke Wednesdays. Last week, what did we talk about last week? Oh, last week was amazing. We talked about what does it mean to be a black woman. We had a phenomenal panelist on the show. Pockets Full of Sunshine is one of those panelists that was on the show last week. And this week, we're talking about Trump washing. Next week, make sure to tune in. If you're in Miami, make sure to come out. We'll be in Overtown at the African Institute, and it's only guys are invited. Only guys are invited to attend in person. It's going to be locker room talk. We're going to have a panel of young men talking about what locker room talk is. We'll be talking about the Me Too movement. I saw your facial expression. So if you're in Miami, it's free. We're going to have beer and wine. Make sure to come out and hang out with us. Everyone else can tune in online through Instagram. However, only men can attend. People who identify as men can attend in person. We'll be in Overtown. So please feel free to come out. Justin, I see you with the emoji. Justin, you are more than welcome to come out. So, yes. And tonight, we have What If I Want Beer and Wine? Kathy's asking. Well, there's, I'm sure, a grocery store near you. Feel free to go. But tonight, what are these facial expressions? What's going on here?
Oh, whenever I hear about only men are welcome to attend, it triggers my wait, what?
Yeah.
Sense where I've seen enough men's clubs around and stuff like that.
It's not like that.
Well, I'm not talking about sordid things. I'm talking about rich people cigar club sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't. I've never been to one.
I've not either, but I've seen them.
But then Justin saying thanks, Pete. I'm guessing y'all are agreeing on something. But yeah, Matt saying where will the info be posted for this? I'll be posting it on Woke Wednesdays this coming week. But please feel free. Anyone who identifies as a man can come out to the event. I think this will be a great conversation. And I think this space is needed for us to kind of talk about what we think about this thing. I know not all of us see eye to eye on this. So I think this will be an important conversation that needs to take place. But tonight, we have a phenomenal person on the show. You know I hype you up all the time.
I know.
Hype you up. One of my childhood friends, one of my brothers, someone who I've known for over 17, 18 years. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Peter Butterfield. Been friends with him forever. I've been a multiple-time guest here. We've talked about a few different topics. We've talked about disaster capitalism, pretty much how after any sort of natural disaster or war, predatory corporations come in. We did it specifically in the wake of Irma.
Don't let any disaster go to waste.
Yes, don't let a good disaster go to waste was the phrase. We've talked about net neutrality and what we needed to do there, and not the best outcome happened, but
not that anyone cares about net neutrality anymore. And that's kind of a little bit segue into tonight.
And tonight we're talking about something called TrumpWashing.
Yeah. So what is TrumpWashing?
Yeah. So TrumpWashing is using the apparent vileness of President Trump to whitewash the sins of America's past and how horrible past administrations and past presidents and America in general has been. Now, we spent most of the past hour was me going through, and I believe fairly resoundingly, and I don't like tooting my horn in that regard there, but I think I fairly well proved the point that nothing that Trump really does, when it comes to the scope of policy, when it comes to the scope of actions or even beliefs, are outside the American norm. And in fact, he is not an aberration, but he's the American system working as intended. He is a typical American president. The only way in which
One of the only ways.
There's two main ways that can be seen as different. The first is that rather than being implicit or using subterfuge to communicate his racist or horrible ideology, he's very blatant. He doesn't really have subtlety is not something he's good at. And secondly, how over the top, how grandiose and how much of a spectacle he provides compared to other presidents. There's a word you touched on earlier that I think is important, which is decorum. Trump, you brought that word up.
I say important words sometimes. Yeah.
Trump lacks decorum. He's not good at fitting into spaces, going through the normal rituals of president, going through the normal rituals of diplomacy. So America's, muscling in on different countries, using a more aggressive foreign policy, or a more aggressive, or a more prejudiced or ineffective internal policy, isn't masked by the fact that we have a person with a straight back who's well-spoken.
But another part of that is the environment that he's been produced in.
Yes.
Right? So social media is such a huge integral component to Trump's presidency.
It is.
Right? Social media did not blow up the way it did until the Obama administration. Probably second term, more likely, or maybe end of first term, beginning of second term. Trump has...
It kind of, so it started being a thing of really any note towards the... actually right around... 9/11, quite frankly, under the Bush administration, when it really, when it started. It was very different. That was that was the era of MySpace.
That's 2001?
9/11, yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. Blanked out.
You forgot.
MySpace, 2001?
Yeah.
That was MySpace?
Yeah.
Shout out to everyone who had MySpace. I had a MySpace.
I'm still friends with Tom.
He's still in your top 8?
I mean, if I could ever log into that thing, I'm sure he is.
I swore I thought it was a hacker back then. The way you put music and graffiti background on your MySpace. Yeah, good times.
Yeah,
life was simpler back then.
We were not nearly as connected. No one had a phone that acted as a camera that you could connect to the internet.
2001. That's about a Nokia phone.
Yeah,
with brick on your phone. Yeah.
By Obama administration, more people were using the internet to talk about politics, and there was more conversation in that regard. But social media really didn't have a strong footing in electing someone.
Yeah.
Until Trump.
Yeah.
And so what works with electing someone via social media? Well, what's the most important part about social media? What is the most valuable thing? Well, it's getting views and shares, and not necessarily likes, but those views and shares are the important things.
Yeah.
If getting attention is the important part, and Trump is someone who's an expert at getting attention. I don't think he's a smart man. I don't think he's a good man.
You don't think he's a smart man?
No, I don't. I think he has one very, very good skill. And I think his main skill is that he's able to get attention. He's very good at that. And
is that not a type of smartness?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
That's a whole other episode.
It is.
I don't want to get started.
He's not a good policy wonk. Yeah. He's not a good.
Yeah.
There's he's not. But when it comes to, he is a master at that, and I will give if I have to give him anything, I will give him that.
Sure. Yeah. No, I can agree. But and not so I agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah.
And Twitter is probably his.
Oh, it's his home turf.
It's Obama didn't really use. Maybe if he did use Twitter, it wasn't a thing.
No, he really did not.
Trump has been known just for his Twitter handle, which is why when I think one of the employees of Twitter deactivated it for 20 minutes, it was such a huge deal. That man probably disappeared somewhere.
No,
but yes, social media has been such a huge component to this Trump candidacy and presidency, which is a new thing that we're seeing.
Yes, it is.
Right? Okay.
So that's the main difference there, is that he's a president bathed in social media, who uses who's able to use attention. When you take a look at how much free advertising, how many free mentions, so not paid advertising, not anything like that, but just being mentioned by the news, Trump dwarfs every other candidate by a large margin that was in the election, and it shows that's his skill set. Yeah. Now, so I will argue that those are the main points where he is actually substantively different. He's better at just getting any type of attention, not necessarily good, not necessarily positive, but any type of attention. And
could we also say that this new kind of uprising of neo-Nazis and KKK is also something that makes him different from other presidents, at least in the past 50 years, 40 years, maybe?
So I would actually argue that no to that. Okay. I would say that it's a very. I would say that his rise is more comorbid with the rise of the alt-right. because there's a lot of other factors that came in. The main one being, and you'll see whenever there's if you look historically, if you look at Germany after World War I, you see the rise of fascism there, obviously. You'll see in when Greece first started feeling the effects of austerity measures, you saw the rise of the Golden Dawn Party there, which is their fascist party. Pretty much anywhere where you see a large, sharp decline in economic prospects for the majority of younger people, you will see a rise in both fascist and socialist ideologies.
That's a whole other episode, too.
Not necessarily, not always, but there's a very large correlation there.
It makes sense. I can see that.
So I would argue that that rise came from coming out of the economic hellhole that was, the housing bust and the economic downturn that happened at the beginning of the Obama presidency. Which
was also kind of fueled through, or kind of its inception was in the Bush presidency.
It came through. You could argue that it came through the Clinton presidency with I think it was Dodd-Frank. But that's a whole other thing.
Another episode.
I did not prepare to talk about that.
You're good. So Peter came unprepared tonight. That's what I just heard. Okay, so
we could talk about that, but
let's get back on track.
Yes.
So Trump, if you're just joining us, Trump is not an aberration. That's what we've been saying all night.
And that's the important thing. And if there's one thing I communicate, even if we don't get into why it's important to know that is the important detail that if I can jam into everyone's head, he's not an aberration. This is normal.
So the question is now, why do people consider him this new thing?
Well, so the big thing, and we mentioned, is that he's not good at decorum. And that's a very effective tool that the executive branch had to kind of hide the more shady dealings of, the American Empire. But it's not, the main thing isn't that people are unaware that he's different. The main thing is that this allows them to rehabilitate people who worked in the Bush administration, who worked in the Obama administration, who worked in the Clinton administration. It allows them to rehabilitate these power players, these people who might have been on the fringes. It allows them to be painted in a positive light. It allows them to paint the people like Marco Rubio in a more positive light, even by comparison. Because when you have something as horrible as he is shown to be, and then you show someone who's just a little bit better, it feels like a big change, even when it's not.
Which is why George Bush became everyone's grandfather in the past
specifically
year or two.
You've seen those pictures, there's good old George Bush painting another thing. Oh, he's so bad at that. Ha 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 ha. He's a freaking war criminal, and he is a legitimate war criminal who ran torture camps. I'm sorry,
don't apologize.
I'm being very blunt with that language because there is nothing good or nice about him. There is, and I even read that speech from him earlier. No, he was a reprehensible, horrible human being who caused net devastation and horror upon the world at large.
But now George Bush comes out and says that, Trump's language is racist.
It's racist.
He's even said that.
Yes.
About Trump, describing Trump.
And people lionize and valorize him for that.
The memes came out, here comes, Uncle Bush, Grandfather Bush, yada, yada, yada. But because we fall into this trap.
But it's not just Republicans who did this. This is
actually
a big part of Hillary's campaign when she was running against Trump. Remember, Hillary was trying, one of the things in this, you can read some of the documents about, her with her campaign manager and all that. One of the big pushes they did was try and show that Trump was somehow not emblematic of the actual Republican Party, hoping then to get some of the more moderate Republicans to vote for Hillary.
It's all a big game.
Yes, it was all a big game. It's a ploy. It's a rhetorical tool. They use this quirk of language. They use bringing up this idea that he is somehow excessively bad because, he doesn't speak well, and he is overt with his, racism.
I think a good example of this, I can think of I can think of a lot of good examples of this overt kind of just language, but the one that kind of comes to mind right now is when Trump said Haiti, immigrants from Haiti, and I think he said El Salvador, or those places are shitholes.
Yep.
People just up in arms.
Yep.
Disgusted by this language, as we should be.
Yeah.
We should be discussing about this language.
We should be.
But policies that have been in place to create economic shitholes, right? But through American presidents.
Haiti alone has, been routinely at, economics and all sorts of horrible things have happened with Haiti, specifically from the United States.
They still owe France money, even though they were colonized by the French. Right?
There's reasons dealing with the outgrowth of colonialism that caused Haiti's issues. They're not to call it that is.
The point is that we get stuck on explicit language as opposed to
the actual substantive action
and the implicit actions.
Yes.
That end up being explicit for other people, right?
And so he might say it's a shithole, but did a previous president help out? Was that a policy goal? No, it wasn't. And the only difference is that they're not giving lip service to America's a big, generous giant. Instead of, no, America's kind of a warmongering, thieving dick. And we kind of have to be aware of that.
So one thing, the main thing that you're kind of asking us to do tonight is to be critical of the information that we receive.
That's part of it, yes. Very critical of it, yes.
To be critical of presidential administrations, to understand that these are not anomalies, right? If anything, it is American. This is a very American thing to do.
Yes.
To dehumanize people domestically and internationally.
And, to not to put a fine point on it, we have to, really, try and criticize why are we being told certain things? And I don't mean the whole nonsense, oh, people are talking about some celebrity baby, I want to know what bill they passed. No, that's kind of nonsense. What I'm talking about is the actual language used about America's actions. That's the more important thing. When we talk about a current administration, why are they framing Trump in this way? When we talk about another country, why are we talking about their human rights abuses when, hey, I would argue that, people starving in poor areas in this country is a pretty severe human rights abuse would be my contention. Or, people being locked in solitary confinement for years would be a pretty large human rights abuse would be my contention.
So many things.
Why do we talk about those human rights abuses and ignore ones we can handle here? Why do we do that? And I want you to, what the main thrust of this is I want you to pay attention to these sort of signals in language, and I want you to understand that this is normal. This is America playing by its normal book.
Miss Amanda Miller is saying, it seems we're always out saving the world and suffering at home. And even then,
we're all about the language of saving the world.
The language of it, yeah.
We say we're about saving the world. And actually, I'm going to bring this up. There's a podcast that I really recommend you guys listen to. It's called Citations Needed. Use the one on SoundCloud or Apple. Don't do YouTube for it. Trust me. There's a different Citations Needed on YouTube that's horrible.
Which has been a huge part of kind of informing us.
Yeah, informing this episode tonight. They did two podcasts specifically. They did one on TrumpWashing, which I did get
episode 22.
And they did another one called America, the Always Stumbling Empire. And I think you should listen to those two if you're interested in the topics I've talked about. They're by two political columnists called Adam Johnson and Nima Shirazi. But they kind of talk about both how the Trump-washing effect itself, and they also talk about how America always presents itself as if, oh, we don't want to go to war, but these human rights abuse, or, oh, we're being drawn into war. We're being drawn into conflict. Not that America is going to war to get shit. It's, we are being forced into this. We don't want to.
We're a savior.
Yeah, we're doing this for the better of all, for the liberal democracy.
Yeah.
There's that old joke you'll hear from people who were in high school during the Bush administration, call that.
You're telling our age, Peter.
Yeah, whatever. Where they'll talk about bringing freedom to another country, and what they actually mean is getting oil.
Yeah, do y'all remember Freedom Fries or Freedom Waffles? That's kind of where that.
Yeah.
Sophomore year of high school. 2000.
And that's the joke, is that, America talks about bringing freedom somewhere when it wants to steal resources.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we kind of made the point.
Oh, I think we did.
I think we made the point. So I kind of want to open up for questions. Does anyone have any questions about what we said tonight? Understanding that what we're saying, we took a very different approach to Trump as from what is usually taken on, like in CNN, where people are just surprised. I think that's been one of the biggest things that with news outlets, people are at least purportedly surprised. Can you believe what Trump just did? Can you believe what Trump just said? Did he really just tweet that? What we're saying tonight is this is not unusual. This is nothing new. Maybe the avenues of communication have changed, right? Which they have, but for the most part, the language
is still the same.
It's still the same. The action is still the same.
The ideology is still the same.
Ideology, yes.
It's still kind of all comes from this.
That's a good word. Yeah.
Neoliberal place, and
neoliberal. That's a whole other episode.
Yeah.
But does anyone have any questions? Matt is saying, so do you think things in government will change anytime soon under a different administration?
So let me put it this way: the answer is maybe.
You're more optimistic than I am.
Well, so here's the thing: I'm not giving a timeline with that maybe.
Fair.
He just asked if, and I do think it can. The big thing is that we are seeing the advent of the largest change in human communication in history. This sort of like real-time, fast discussion. Yeah. Woke Wednesdays is part of it. Like Twitter's a part of it. All these different topics like this were not discussed. You weren't really allowed to peer behind the curtain of the policy wonks.
Yeah.
Before.
That's a fair point.
Before these sorts of internet communication. So.
And even today, we said we're going to start the show like this.
Yeah.
Today's a perfect example of National Walkout Day.
We were going to set up the show. I feel bad.
Yeah. No. Go ahead. I know you want to talk about.
But so. The kids who did the national walkout today, all the high
all
schoolers,
over the country,
they organized from the internet. They see an issue, they were like, "This is a problem for all of us. This is something we need to handle," and organized very quickly a walkout to show we want this change to happen. And wherever you fall on the issue of gun ownership, gun legislation, wherever, you have to support that these kids founded something they have a political issue with and are going through the process of protesting and enacting change. They're doing what they can to have change occur. That's the sort of thing we all need to be doing pretty much all the time. That is what we need to do. They are an example to follow. Those kids, and I'm saying kids because, they're in high school.
They're kids.
But, you know what? They are working their hardest. They are doing what they believe is right and taking action.
And they're probably doing a lot more than a lot of Americans are.
Yes.
And that's just a very real thing.
They are an example to be followed.
Absolutely.
If more people end up like them, then yes, I do think change can occur.
Their courage, I think, gives us hope.
Yeah. There's another question that's a bit further up as well. There's a couple.
Let's see. No, that was the one.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, so let's read this one. Let's see. All right, so Miss Amanda Miller saying, so is Trump just vocally perpetuating the historical narrative that is usually not so verbal of other American presidents? Yes, it's kind of
pretty much yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he just keeping it real, as his supporters strongly promote?
So what do you mean by real? He's still lying about a lot of things.
He's as egregious as he comes off.
Yeah,
But the point is that that's not a new thing.
No. So the fact is, he is bad at dog whistles. When he says something racist.
Well, I don't think he's trying to do dog whistles.
He's not.
Yeah.
And
Social Woodlands, real quick. Mm-hmm. Literally the angriest I've been over my phone dying. Go charge it. Come on, Kosher Woodlands. Yeah. No, go ahead. Youth historically lead movements is what Miss Amanda Miller.
100% true.
Oh, absolutely.
Because as you get older, that job's important. You need to make that money. You got family to take care of, and there's a lot of things that are societally built that keep you in place, that keep you from rocking the boat.
I understand why adults don't
yes.
do it. Yeah.
And
also I think adults are less hopeful than kids are.
They're more cynical.
They're more cynical. And so it's interesting because we tend to demonize tantrums with kids. but when tantrums maybe can be used as
hopefully
political movements.
I would
elongated tantrums maybe. Real quick, Trump supporters value his raw honesty and take pride that he's not a politician and not scripted as our past leaders. So let me build off that. Mm-hmm. So is this potentially maybe a good thing? Malcolm X was talking about Barry Goldwater in the 60s and how he could be the best thing for Black America, is what he was saying, because of how explicit, how dangerous, how just overt he was with things. So is maybe Trump a great alarm clock? So maybe taking him as this horrible anomaly, or he's new, maybe that we could use that politically to have positive effects.
And you know what? That is a use for his action. That is a use for the display he makes of himself. But I would actually argue that no, it is not. I would argue that no, it's not inherently a good clarion call or a good thing. I'm not much in the way. I'm not much for accelerationism, where things have to get so bad that people wake up from their hot box.
You have a nice question here.
Okay. Let me finish this point.
Go ahead.
So, are more people going to be more politically activated because of it? Yes, undoubtedly. But I don't think that the cost of... I don't think it's going to have the positive effects necessarily initially. I don't think it's going to cause enough people to be mad soon enough. I know we have a lot of people been angry, a lot of people been protesting, but the problem with this administration is that it's in a lot of American... One of the problems with the American executive infrastructure is that it's very hard to change in a timely fashion, and the American electorate has a very short memory. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this topic up.
Yeah.
Because we can't forget how horrible these past administrations were, and we will very quickly forget how bad... we won't forget how bad things were under Trump, but we will think when the new guy comes in who's slightly better that, everything was fixed because he's slightly better. And I think people will forget how bad it was.
But I think slightly better might be the wrong language. I think
it'll feel...
Less explicit.
Yes. And it will feel slightly better.
And it will feel slightly better.
And so less people will be active. So I think if the next couple presidents were like Trump, then sure, I might agree with you that it will be a good clarion call, good, call to action. But I don't think that's going to be the case. And I think unless people are made very well aware very quickly that you need to remain cognizant and vigilant about this sort of thing, I think a lot of people, once a new person comes in who falls more in line, are going to stop paying attention.
So Justin is bringing up a great question. He says, the points on policy across presidencies is well taken. Mm-hmm. Well taken. But are we downplaying the impact on societal discourse? The repugnancy is new and has empowered supporters and dissenters in a way that is new. So we kind of answered a little bit, but I do like the first part of the question where he says, but are we downplaying the impact on societal discourse? Maybe not just on the left side, but also on the right side.
No, he's definitely had an effect in rhetoric, and I am kind of downplaying that aspect because that is a different, and I will admit that. But that wasn't really the thrust. What I was trying to show is that Trump specifically is the natural outgrowth of American policy and is not substantively different in any real way.
Business as usual, right? What we've been saying.
I would also argue that Trump does not actually represent, or really does not represent that great a change from the language that was being used previously on Fox News. It was slightly more coded, but it was just as virulent.
And also previous to the 60s. Which is only 40, 50 years ago.
This is more of a return to form. Yeah, it's not a change, I would argue.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
So, was I downplaying it? Yes. But because that's a slightly different topic about the change in rhetoric over time.
But that's a good call out. I think that's a great point.
But I do think you're right. That I was downplaying that, and that was intentional.
Yeah. Menex is saying Trump is bringing people together that would otherwise not work together. And I think on... Mm-hmm. Menex is saying this, I think on both left and right sides, right?
That is the thing that has happened. He is a divisive candidate and does make people kind of tribalize around their opinion of him.
But also, in a way, we've also, even though we've talked about social media, I think we've also, in a way, also downplayed it.
Yeah.
Because of how hyper-visual social media makes things.
Mm-hmm.
My brother called me after the Trump election, after Trump won. My brother lives... he lived in rural North Carolina, outside the city. He was saying that the Klan was marching through, and I was like, I wonder 100 years ago he wouldn't have had access to a phone. so he wouldn't have been able to call me to let me know that this is happening. But now he does have access, and now I know the Klan is marching through.
That is actually a very important thing. We are now more aware of every excess and every problem that occurs.
Yeah.
We are. I would argue that there hasn't been an increase in police violence. I'd argue we're just seeing more of it.
Completely agree.
I wouldn't argue that there's been an increase in racial language or marches. I'm saying I would argue that we're seeing more of it. And
I love Black Lives Matter. I'm a huge supporter of Black Lives Matter. But one of the issues that is in the South. So we're from the South. Mm-hmm. We're from North Carolina, and in the South, law enforcement started as slave patrols to capture slaves. The violence against black people by law enforcement, by the state, is definitely not a new thing. Mm-hmm. If anything, maybe it's gotten. I don't know if I want to say better, but differently bad than before. That's a slippery slope.
I mean,
this is nothing new. That's what we're trying to say.
That's nothing new.
Yeah. Nikki Eileen, I'm not sure how to say it. Who's running against him? Anyone else in the Republican Party? She said, stop giving him attention then. She said hashtag 422, hashtag 444. I'm not sure what that means. Miss Amanda Miller saying Trump has allegedly said that if he ever ran for president, he would run Republican because they were easily influenced or whatever.
I believe that was actually shown.
Because Trump used to be a Democrat.
Yes, but I believe that actual quote was shown to be fallacious.
I don't know what that is.
Not true. I believe that was shown not to have. I don't. If you can show me the clip of that, but as far as I've only seen that in mimetic form.
Yeah, well, she was saying, do you believe that number one he even said this?
Oh no, I don't believe he actually said that.
Strategy for this.
Yeah. I don't believe he said that. It would be. I wish he had said it because that would imply a bit more
I don't even think it would matter.
It wouldn't matter.
I don't think it would even matter at this point. His followers are so loyal.
Mm-hmm. But the thing is, they don't. He didn't have to be. If he wasn't this explicit, they'd still be just as loyal. There is a hardcore group of hyper conservative, hyper racist, Republicans, and I'm using that term racist, but understand what I mean here. That will never vote for anyone other than the conservative candidate. And as long as they give them the right language, either the right dog whistles, the right explicit language, that he has that vote and can do no wrong. And I think that's true for any conservative president.
Kosher Woodland is saying one thing Trump was good for was calling out fake news.
Sure.
I don't want to minimize what she's saying, but I think this is an interesting point to even.
So what do you mean by that? Let me start with that.
So
because I don't want to be dismissive, and I know what my reaction was, but it sounded more like a joke there. So him calling out fake news as far as pointing out, this news source is fake because it says bad things about me. Well, okay, that's not actually fake news. That's just news.
But what happens when we take arguments and flip them?
Yeah.
Right. We can use this against his own language against him, if people were to even buy into this.
Yeah.
Right. Or even So we're waiting for Kosher Woodlands to kind of reply, which I think could be a very interesting point. I don't think we should downplay that. So yeah.
But the other thing I would say with regards to that specifically, is that there has been, because of, we were exposed to a lot of the actual, Russian investigation, the investigation to Russia messing with our media and the fake news in social media and what that could, in actual, propaganda, baseless propaganda that was spread by, political agitators. If you could argue that him being president made that a more explicit and more necessary thing to investigate. So, if you're saying that in that context, then I would agree.
She's saying, she said to read the first statement, slightly better, slightly less bad, half glass, half full, half empty, I guess is what she's saying. Maybe it just went over my head. Let's see, Russians that he's in bed with. But the United States has been in bed with so many countries.
So
many leaders, not countries, because that implies the people of that country, but at least leaders.
Yeah. Well, that does represent a criminal action, and does represent, like, greed and graft. And what I wanted to show with the Halliburton thing is that, being president for money or being a part of the political party for money is a common thing. That might be the way he's doing it versus somebody else. It might be a different reason, but it's all part and parcel to the same, like, sort of power plays that people who become president will often do.
Justin saying he brought journalism under scrutiny in a way it didn't seem to be before, probably to the detriment overall, but it might be worth it if people
people are
worth it if people be more discerning. Then why lie if he's so truthful? Let's get to Justin's point first, because I think that's a fair point, right? About bringing journalism under an extreme scrutiny, at least. But now it's not in it's the type of scrutiny that journalism is under is very kind of just dismissive, not critical. It's just kind of like, well, it's all fake, as opposed to, oh, well, let me think about this. What are the pros? What are the cons? Let me think about this thoroughly. It's not that type of scrutiny. It's just, well, it's fake. If it's from any news source, it's just fake.
The best lies are mostly true.
Say that again?
The best lies are mostly true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the best sort of thing is, like, they'll give you a couple of, like, actual facts about, like, oh, there's been, like, troop movements here, and, like, people are starving this country, and so therefore we have to investigate these human rights abuses. But they don't bring up the fact that, oh, that's because of sanctions we put in place and deals we put in place to make sure that food didn't get there, so we have a justification. So, like, the best lie involves some aspect of truth because it makes it more palatable, more believable, and easier to check. And because, part of it seems true, then all of it has to be.
Yeah.
But if we just wave off, like, the entire, like, belief in journalism entirely, we're going to miss something. And I would argue that we aren't really delving more deeply into news. As Justin said, we're becoming more dismissive. One of the things, and this is one thing that social media exacerbates, is kind of this balkanization of culture, where we, like, kind of insulate ourselves into different little groups. Like, the group that cares about, like, nerdy things, the group that cares about social justice things, the group that cares about our guns.
Enclaves,
Like, and we only pay attention to sources that speak the language and speak to the things that we want to hear about. And, like, it's very obvious to us when, like, a nonsense article shows up on Breitbart that this thing is completely and utterly false. But the people who only listen to Breitbart,
the us is debatable, right? Because
to most people who I that are interested in social justice.
Oh shit! Yeah,
there we go.
I want. There's a quote by Denzel Washington. To kind of support what you're saying. Denzel Washington was interviewed, and he said they were asking him about the role of the media. He said, "Well, if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read the newspaper, you're misinformed." So he was saying, "What is your role?" And he's kind of getting at what you're saying, to have not a dismissive attitude, but to have a criticality to you.
You have to,
where you critique it, and I would also suggest that criticality can be done by yourself, but it's so much better when it's done with people.
Having discussion, bringing up ideas with other people who you trust people you trust the evaluative abilities of, that have different opinions.
You trust their discernment, right? With these things, their approach to this.
People who have different perspectives.
Yeah.
Like, for example,
we talk about stuff.
Yeah, we talk about stuff all the time, but like, growing up, like, I'm a straight white guy, and I kind of have to, like, when I was first introduced to some of the things that, like, some of the experiences with, like, my black friends, or, like, experiences Jerson might have had, I just had to kind of take it on faith because they're looking at it from a different perspective. And it took me a while to kind of internalize a lot of, oh, this is what's actually the case. And
which is interesting because even though we grew up in a house away from each other,
we have very different life experiences.
Completely just different life experiences,
And so the ability to, like, say, okay, this is what I believe, this is what I think, and put it up to, like, scrutiny, to put up there, this is what I think, this is what I believe, and not get offended when you are cut down to size.
Because I was about to say that is a difficult thing to do.
Yes.
To put yourself up to scrutiny. It's easier to talk about it, but to say when someone actually calls you out on your shit, hey, I disagree because of this.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I spent so much time getting this stuff ready, because I want to be able, like, when I present a position, I don't want it just to be, oh, this is me, like, going off on a tangent. I want there to be like a logical basis of fact behind it. And if I'm going to be challenged on that, I want it to be substantive, and I should be.
I was about to say. To be clear, you should be. We all should be challenged on everything. So I did a follow up to last week's Woke Wednesdays on Black excellence and on white privilege. And before I put it out, Peter was the only person I was able to talk to about it in person. And Peter was challenging some of the points that I was making, helping me think through what I was thinking about. Perfect, just great. And then I was able to go live later. But the point is that to put your thoughts out there. If you're not willing to have your thoughts critiqued, then I think that's telling of what are you thinking about? Like, what are you thinking about? I'm curious. If you missed it, the link is in our bio at Woke Wednesdays on the Woke Wednesdays page. The link is there for YouTube. All of our past episodes, or at least since we started recording YouTube,
which I think started actually with the net neutrality episode we did.
Yeah, net neutrality. So just please feel free to click on the YouTube link on the Woke Wednesdays page. So many of our past episodes are on there. So yeah, Miss Amanda Miller. No worries, we forgive you for the laughing emoji. So we have about 15 minutes left. I think folks are starting to get off. So let's go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay, so some quick keynote. I guess so. To sum it up, people are using like the excesses of Trump's personality, the way he acts, to disguise some of the problems with America in past presidencies. We need to be aware of that and recognize that Trump is just America working as normal. He is he is a typical American president. He's not an exception in any real substantive way. We talked about how important it is to be motivated and actually take political action, like the Parkland kids and kids around the nation have been with regards to the shooting, with regards to gun legislation.
Absolutely.
And we addressed some critiques specifically about downplaying the effect of the change in discourse that happened because of how abrupt and how direct 45 is. I believe that sums up most of the topics within a fairly good way.
I think that's great. And do you have are you comfortable with people emailing you in case they have questions or something?
Feel free to message me.
What's your email?
Honestly, probably best just to message me through Facebook, quite frankly.
Facebook, so just Peter Butterfield?
Yeah, Peter Butterfield. You can find me through Jerson's name. I'll actually...
I haven't put it on my Facebook.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. Then I'll set up an email because, my current one is, way too crowded and I will lose it.
But you also have Instagram.
I do have an Instagram, but I'll actually give you an email and if you have any questions, we'll send it to that.
Yeah.
I'll make a new one and use that. Because, quite frankly, my current email is so bogged down with nonsense, I can't find anything.
Okay, so real quick, Miss Amanda Miller said, wait. The opinions on the Oscars, actors, and etc. cannot be what the rest do. I'm not sure if I understand.
I'm very confused by that statement.
Miss Amanda Miller, could you please clarify a little bit? I'm sorry, I refuse to believe the pettiness is that the pettiness is the norm. What do you mean by that? I think we're a little confused. Kosher Woodland is saying Congress is going to vote on it this Friday.
I think that's another topic.
That's another topic, yeah. Did we miss something?
Oh, the internet tax.
Oh, the internet tax. Yes. Okay, internet sales tax. Okay. But I think his constant tweets. What am I missing here? I think I'm missing something, Miss Amanda Miller. No, the time is not up. I thought we were just kind of ending, but feel free to ask other questions.
Internet sales tax, I haven't really paid much attention to that current tax.
Which I think that in itself is an episode.
Yes.
The incessant.
The last tax bill I paid attention to was the Republican proposed income tax and tax that change.
But just the incessant amount of news that is just kind of being
there's more than
we're being targeted with this. How could anyone? This is more than a full-time job. How could anyone ever pay this much attention? Mr. Manning was saying about actors.
His constant tweets. Okay, so yes, one of the things that I did mention.
Kosher Williams saying I meant the Oscars movement. I think that was called Times or something. Go.
I was thinking the Oscars So White was the only Oscar movement I'm aware of. I didn't.
Yeah, Oscars So White is the only. I don't really watch Oscars like that. I don't think I care enough about that. But please enlighten us. What are y'all talking about? Justin saying, Herson's every 10 minutes. That's a whole other episode.
It really is.
It really is. It really is. There's so many other episodes that we could do. Justin, feel free to be a guest again.
Okay. I know what you're talking about now. Okay, so Trump tweeting about how the Oscar laureate, but so here, yes, Trump. Trump is kind of like the way that Trump is unique, and this is why they use him to kind of whitewash previous administrations. Is how bad he is at decorum. How he lives on the outside of his skin, says everything that passes as a forethought that comes across his lips. If it could even be halfway thought to be a sentient thought, it's going to come out from his mouth. And that is the main difference in what he is. And that's something I addressed. That is what makes him a useful pawn. That's what makes him useful in media. Because they can use, this aspect of him is what allows him to hide or make seem better past administrations and the other things America does.
Mr. Man Miller is saying, I just refuse to believe he's worried about the right things.
It doesn't, so...
I'm with you. I think I know where you're going, yeah.
So the thing is, he may not, in and of himself, actually be aware of other things. That really doesn't matter. What matters is the power of the administration, and the administration, even though the president can wield quite a bit of power, the overall impetus of the American empire and the power of the other branches and the power within the executive branch that's not localized necessarily in the president itself, can have a large directing force.
And real quick, I want to point out that one of your sub points tonight that I don't know if it was made clear enough is that the United States is an empire. I think that's been one of your kind of sub points.
Yes, that was a big thing.
I don't know if it was, we got so caught up in with Trump not being an anomaly, that I just want to make it extremely clear: the United States is an empire, and in everything that comes with that. And it's interesting the way we talk about Trump and the way we talk about power. It's also a reminder that we don't understand American politics the way we probably should. By we, I mean most Americans.
Yes, okay.
And it's probably intended that way. And I know Justin's saying that it's becoming a tagline that I should probably embrace. That's a whole nother episode. So just understanding local politics, state politics, federal politics, this is something that is extremely difficult just to kind of grasp. All of us got shit to do. I'll be honest with you. I got real shit to do. I don't have time to keep up with all this shit. So we can sometimes only...
That's actually an important thing. And I'm going to pause you right there. That's an important thing. Attention is a limited resource. You can only pay attention to so many things.
Yeah.
So you're not going to pay attention to every aspect of everything. That's why these sorts of conversations are important, because they make you aware of things you could not pay attention to with all the other things you have to pay attention to. But, whether it be within a social justice realm, a political realm, a fun realm, you need to be exposed to these sorts of things, and you need to be exposed to them through people who will actually put themselves up to some sort of scrutiny.
And different people, I think, can also care about different things. So I'm not as in tune with this type of information like Peter is, right? So he's a phenomenal guest to have on the show. I might be more inclined to think about racial politics and that type of stuff, right? So then I can do this. So having different friends that can do different things is so important, and it's been, I think, one of the pillars of Woke Wednesdays to have different people talking about different things, which I absolutely love. You even said yourself, we did disaster capitalism, net neutrality, and now TrumpWashing. So 3 different things that Peter has become extremely knowledgeable about. You're just a knowledgeable person.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so Coach Williams saying that's why they flood us with celebrity gossip. That's I love conspiracies and
I actually kind of addressed that. Celebrity, yes, there is a lot of celebrity gossip. But
which is not new either. This is very American.
No, you were talking to me about this, and I want you to talk about this thing. You're talking about the book you read about how the United States people didn't read, but the one.
Alexis de Tocqueville. Justin read it. Democracy in America. We're in the same class. How in the late 1700s this French man came to the United States and was writing and kind of researching the United States and was critiquing how Americans, when they read, they kind of read and popular culture of that time, right? In their newspapers, if people were lucky enough to read. So this is not, again, I guess tonight it's just a theme. This shit ain't new. This shit been going on for a minute. Like this is all this shit is American. It's historical, presently still going on. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. Miss Amanda Miller saying this was great. See you next Woke Wednesday ski fight. Oh, what's up, fam? Yeah. So 1830s fake news. There you go, Justin. So yeah. So sorry.
No worries.
Great moment. Yeah. But all right. So we're about to call it off tonight because we're about to go hit some bars.
Yes.
In downtown Greensboro. If you're in North Carolina, downtown Greensboro, come hang out with us. About to hit some bars, have some drinks. You're off tomorrow, so we're definitely having some drinks tonight. Yeah. So y'all, thank you so much for tuning in tonight, Peter. Seriously.
Hey.
You're phenomenal. You're brilliant. Since I was 12 years old, I've been telling Peter he's brilliant.
You talked me up way higher than I could ever live up to.
I'm 29. I still think Peter is absolutely brilliant. So y'all give him a shout out for just being our guest tonight. Thank you so much. You've been a guest 3 times?
Yep. Hey, thank you for having me. I always have a blast. It's always nice, bringing these ideas out there, hearing what people think, hearing what, everyone's opinions and
I'll be honest, I love to see what we're doing. From 12 years old, when we met, to now that we're well, we're not going to say your age. We both graduated 2006 from high school. I love that we still have our friendship going on. You're brilliant. I love listening to you. I know they loved listening to you. They were giving you love throughout the entire episode. 2 hours tonight.
Yeah, wow.
So thank you everyone so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you so much. Next week, make sure to tune in. Locker Room Talk. I know y'all didn't like what I said earlier about only men are allowed to come to the event. Well, that's what it is. Because this is going to be a very unique space where hopefully by only men attending, they can be more comfortable to disclose some information. That's the goal. I feel like you want to critique it, please.
I mean, I have issues with it.
Go ahead. Please.
I don't feel that necessarily creating. I don't think men need another safe space.
I didn't say it was safe.
It definitely is. It's a space that only men can talk about male issues. That's what a safe space
people will also be viewing.
Viewing.
We don't need it, but I think it's important.
I mean, it's important to have them, but I don't know if one's necessary for that sort of conversation because a lot of the larger problems caused by quote unquote locker room talk, don't affect men, and so them only being the ones that are part of that conversation.
So I disagree.
Okay.
So locker room talk, if we're both kind of understanding it similarly, this is toxic masculinity to it, right?
It's very large
component. Which I think definitely affects men.
I said only. I used the word only.
Oh, okay, absolutely.
And I think because it has larger societal impact outside of just men, people who identify as male, I think that not including people in the conversation, in the space, is doing a disservice to people who are affected by it.
I see what you're saying, but I think something can be good, right? But not everything at the same time.
Fair enough.
Right? So this can be a good conversation to have, and then in the following, because this isn't the end-all be-all, then in the following event that we do around this, then other people are invited. But let's be honest with you, with ourselves. We police ourselves sometimes around certain identities that are present.
Of course.
Right? So the way people of color might talk around white folks, we might police ourselves as opposed to just being around people of color. Right? So men might say things just around men they wouldn't say around women. So I think this space is important for at least us to talk through these things. Okay. Obviously not everyone will agree, which I think is part of the point. But women can also, anyone can tune in. So everyone is still subject for critique. But I think at least this space where at least we can talk. And there'll be follow-up episodes. We have part 2 episodes all the time on Woke Wednesdays. I wish you'd come. I think it'd be great. But if you're in Miami, please come out. I forgot we were still live.
Yep.
Coach Williams is just clapping you up, saying it's always a pleasure to have you on Woke Wednesdays.
Thank you for having me. I love doing this.
So thank you so much. You'll be on the episode soon, because I'll be back in North Carolina.
I'm sure.
A couple months. But thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And thank you again.
Thank you for having me. Y'all have a good night, all right?